This is the Kestrel Country Podcast, where we discuss the people, places, and events all around Kestrel Country. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Kestrel Country Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Church, joined as always by my lovely wife and co-host, Kathryn.
Hello, hello.
We're coming at you from our dining room table.
Like always, pretty much.
Like a lot of the time. We fit these in when we can.
Which frequently is, for instance, at 10:15 tonight.
That's right. That's right. Well, this weekend, man, it's been beautiful. This time of year is always awesome. Weather's been great. You start to smell the wheat in the air, and students are starting to come back, at least to Wazoo. Not to Wazoo, all online.
Yep.
But to U of I and NSA, and kind of marks that start of fall, which is crazy. It doesn't.
No.
We were just up at Dvorak Reservoir, which we should talk about a little bit, but. Driving back, I was thinking all of a sudden, like, we are weeks away from September, which brings elk season, which brings all the back to school stuff, which brings just all the fun of fall. So it's hard to believe this year has been weird.
It's been really weird. But one thing to be crazy grateful for is because, and last year was better too, but usually August for, I don't know, the last 5 years before that has been the smoke season. And it hasn't been this year, which is a huge blessing.
Now you just jinxed us.
No.
The smoke is going to come.
The 2020 smoke.
Yeah. No, it's true. Yeah. Well, the other thing to be grateful for, we're super grateful to live here in Idaho and have so many awesome places to be able to go and visit.
Which we just were talking about with Dvorak.
Yeah. So just about an hour, a little over an hour from here. Went to Dvorak State Park with the kids. That's the first time we've camped there.
Yeah.
And it was fun. It was full. You could tell that a lot of people are itching to be out in the woods and camp and just get away to do things that you can do right now. But really cool. Fun. We found some fun little tent campsites that were off a little bit from everybody else and had just a quick weekend getaway at the reservoir.
We did. It was lots of fun. And just close by, it also doesn't feel crowded, even though, especially on the water, because it's so big, so big. The dam itself is, you're going to have to tell me.
The cool thing, we were talking on the way down there about kind of talking about when it was probably constructed and everything, kind of thinking New Deal, thinking
30s,
kind of that time frame.
20s.
But it's actually fairly recent. 66, I believe, is when they started it, finished it in 72. One of the coolest things is creating this huge reservoir. It's absolutely huge. Is the Dvorak Dam, which is 727 feet tall, I believe, or 772. It's really tall. It's the third tallest dam in the country, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Definitely not the biggest. You have Hoover Dam is just huge, really wide and everything. But it's also the tallest single-axis concrete dam in the Western Hemisphere.
And you have to explain what single axis is, because I wouldn't have known that.
Well, that's just what it is. I mean, I don't know exactly what that means.
Okay, never mind.
But that's the fact. That's the tidbit. But it's super tall and creates this big, deep reservoir. But because it's all surrounded by basically public land, Army Corps of Engineers, that kind of thing, there's no houses on it. There's very few access points to it. So you have this huge, beautiful lake, really. I mean, I think it rivals Coeur d'Alene in beauty, mountains all around it and everything, but very little activity. And there's all kinds of, what do you call them, docks that you can boat up to and swim in. Yeah,
floating docks, these big squares.
And campsites all around the reservoir. It's really cool.
And campsites that you boat into.
Yeah.
But one thing to note is that unlike Lake Coeur d'Alene, which really doesn't have beach either, but rock, but it's mud, definitely mud pretty much up to the water.
Well, yeah, this time of year, because it's fairly low. So obviously with the dam, they control it, they lower it to create power and to release more water into the clear water and everything else. But it's cool. And then kokanee as well. We didn't fish, but there's a lot of kokanee in there. Smallmouth bass, the state record smallmouth bass has been caught in Dvorak many times over. So a lot of great bass fishing, and yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so go visit.
So that's what we did this weekend. But the interview that we've got for you today, it was just you.
Well, so was the last one we did too, but that one wasn't part of the home.
Slacking.
No, we've been slacking. July just disappeared. But this one was in our Home Decorator series. So we jumped back into that with Lindsey Tollefson. And that was a lot of fun. Lindsey and her husband and family just bought an old farmhouse here in Moscow. And they have moved a lot, but she has always had a keen eye for design. She completed a program online. But even so, she just has this knack to make something beautiful, even if it's going to be short term. So we talked a fair bit about that, a couple interruptions with James. So you'll hear those in there too.
Yeah. No, that's fun. I'm excited to see what they do with that place. It was fun. We've been looking for them for a while to find their little kind of little farm, little place outside of town, and found them a great little spot up on Paradise Ridge or Paradise Ridge Road anyway. And so it'll be fun to hear what you guys talk about.
Definitely. Well, good afternoon. We get to have Lindsey Tollefson on today, which is already really fun because we've been sitting here chatting at the table about all sorts of things, masks and whatnot. Anyways, but I asked Lindsey on today because they recently purchased a house, and Lindsey has an incredible vision on remodel and design and decor. And so she's already been getting after it, but it's a project. And so I thought it'd be really fun on our Home Decorator series to have Lindsey come on and kind of tell us tips too, because you have actually a background in this besides just having a talent for it.
Yes. Yeah. I have, am I close enough to that?
Yeah,
I have a certification in interior design that I got after college. So that was fun and helpful, but it's really been something that I've always loved and enjoyed, and I think I would do it whether or not I had a certification. It's just a hobby.
Extra,
yeah, it's just something I think about all the time, and we've really enjoyed fixing up a variety of different homes around Moscow, and this is a new, bigger project than we've had before.
So what sparked your interest? You said you've loved it for a really long time, but what first sparked it? Do you have memory?
That's interesting. I think when I was a little girl going to my grandmother's house, she had this gorgeous 8,000 square foot southern home in Atlanta, Georgia, and it was always perfect. Everything was beautiful. There were rooms that we were not allowed into,
right? Because
they were so perfectly decorated, and I would peek in the rooms, and I loved everything about her house, and I just always wanted a beautiful home, and I think it inspired me to want that in my life, and then just to develop an eye for it. So I spent a lot of time as a teenager and a young adult just creating a hobby out of it, really, buying every magazine and every book. And then when Pinterest came out and blogs started, I was always subscribing to all the decorating blogs. It's just something that I love. And my mother was always so kind in high school. She told me I could redecorate my room whenever I wanted to, as long as I paid for it myself.
So how many times?
I redecorated it like every spring break. I was repainting, but it was fun.
It is fun.
Yeah.
And then you learn as you go, because I repainted too. And I mean, the paint on the carpet, like the edge where the wall meets the carpet.
You learn a lot.
You do.
Yeah.
And you also kind of get stuck with a color. Like the blue I had one time was just a little bright. And it was my bedroom at home growing up. It's just like,
I think you learn color, especially paint color, by trying it out. And you also learn things like, what colors look different in different rooms.
Right.
If you have northern light exposure, certain colors are going to look a certain way. If you have southern light exposures, they're going to look more yellow. And you only learn that by experimenting and trying. And that was a big thing for me in my life, was just trying things and not being afraid to redo stuff.
I think that's key, because otherwise you put it up there and you're unhappy with it, I think.
Yeah.
If you just stick with it,
all the time.
I know, if you stick with like your $75 gallon of paint, so you're like, but then you're going to be walking by it all the time.
Yeah, I think a lot of, I think any creative thing that you do, you're going to end up changing it as you go. I think a lot of creative people operate that way, and you just have to be comfortable with that. And I think a lot of people in their own homes think, I can't change it. Once I do it, I can't change it. But it's actually really easy to change a lot of things in your home, surprisingly easy. And once you get started, you start realizing, oh, I can change it. I can update it as my style changes, or if I put it up and I don't like it, I can just switch it out, you know?
Yeah.
Obviously, if it's something super expensive, you might not want to. But
See, I think
like
that's
a
the danger.
flooring job,
Yeah.
or, you know, an entire floor in your house, you might not want to change that up. But there's a lot of things that are easy to switch around. And you can always ask a professional for the larger choices.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. No, when Rhea was on here, it was the couch that I brought up then because I'd seen her before switch couches out. It seemed like so frequently.
Yeah.
And that was one of those mindset shifts for me too, where it's like, oh,
You can do
you
that.
can change your couch out, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I sell stuff all the time, and it's amazing. You know, people are always looking for used furniture at a discounted price, and I frequently sell rugs just you know, because I'll buy something and I like it for a little while, and then. Well, we've moved a lot, so it looks different in a different house, and it's still in great condition. You just pass it along.
So the current house, can you give us a brief rundown?
Sure. It's built in 1890. It has had an addition put onto it, I think, in the 1990s, so about 100 years after it was built. It's an old farmhouse. The original part of the house is still very original. It has the shiplap walls, the original floors that were there. They're not in great condition, so we're working with that right now and trying to restore what we can and then replace what we need to. The house itself is on 3.5 acres, and it's on a little bit of a hill, so it's a beautiful location, and this really just the interior of the house that needs a lot of work.
Is the exterior what you like, or was the addition?
The addition was
smooth
actually
with everything?
done really well. A lot of additions are not done well, but this one I was surprised at how well they did. The only problem that I find is, and we were talking about this earlier, is that they've done different flooring in every room of the house. And in the addition even, they didn't put the same flooring through the whole addition. So, you know, just thinking about what kind of cohesive look do we want through the house and what do we want to go with through the entire house so that it doesn't feel like, oh, this is added on later.
Right.
You know, but still keeping the original charm.
Are you keeping all the
house.
shiplap?
I am for
Nice.
now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if we do an addition onto the house and that room and we make that room bigger, those rooms that have the shiplap, if we make them bigger, I might just sheetrock the whole thing. But that's way far down the road. So for now, I'm working with it and letting that inspire my style in the house.
Oh, fun.
And just embracing sort of the farmhouse look, which I haven't done before, so it's a little new for me.
So are you thinking ahead right now? Okay, what's your 5-year plan then? And then what are you doing in the short term though too?
Yeah.
Because it's beautiful already from the pictures.
It's getting there. We have like a 6-month plan, 2-year plan, 10-year plan, all sorts of things. So immediately we're just fixing things up. The first thing I did the day that we closed on the house was I took a spatula and I tore all the tile off of the kitchen walls because it was so ugly. So we're just getting rid of those really ugly features that I can't live with. And then we're painting a lot of stuff, just updating the colors of the house. And
Nice.
Eventually, you know, if we're there in 20 years, then we want to put an addition onto the house and make it bigger. We want to redo the floors in the next 5 years.
Nice.
So there's a list of things we have. You know, the windows are going to have to be redone in the next 5 years. It still has, I believe, the original windows in some portions of the house.
That's really cool.
They look like they are very original. So, so we're going to have to replace a few of those. They're starting to rot, but some of them are still in great condition. So I want to keep what we can.
Okay, we're jumping back into it after a small person interruption. So no, my question was, what tips do you have when it's a longer vision on a remodel to love it in the short term?
Yeah, that's a great question because that is what we've been all about in our homes. I think what is really important when you first move in is to create a vision for what you want for this space. And even if you can't do it all right away, create a vision for what you want so that everything you do is working towards that vision. So if you know eventually you want a white kitchen with butcher block countertops like you have, you can go ahead and paint the cabinets white, even if you can't replace the countertops right away. So you can make steps towards your vision and then keep your vision in mind as you make decisions throughout the process. And then there's so many temporary things you can do in a home that do not cost a lot of money. Like painting obviously is everybody's favorite cheap fix, and just about anybody can do it really. But then there's a lot of other things you can do, like You can cover countertops with, they sell this, it's almost like a really thick contact paper that you can cover your countertop with. I mean, you can get it on Amazon for like $50. It's not that expensive. And if you need to cover an old Formica countertop for a year while you wait to replace it, you know, just to get a look that you want temporarily, that's a great option.
Have you done that before?
Yeah, I've done it on small pieces. I haven't done a whole kitchen, but I've done it on smaller pieces, and like you can do it on any like in a bathroom, or I think I did it on a dresser top.
Oh, fun.
And it's kind of, you can get it in different designs. So it's kind of like I did a marble design. You can get all sorts of different colors and designs, and it holds up really well. I was really surprised. Definitely would have sustained kitchen use for sure. I'm definitely waterproof. It's one of those things where you have to make sure you don't get any bubbles in it, you know, so like to put, so you have to have a paint scraper or something that you're using to get it really level. But that kind of thing is really inexpensive, really affordable, easy fix as you're waiting to do your long-term projects. So yeah, I guess that would be my tip. Just keeping the vision in mind and having a vision. And I like to write it all down.
Oh, really? So do you have all the records of your past homes too?
I don't think I still have them.
Okay.
But I do. When I first move in, I'll write down what colors I want in every room. I'll even go to the paint store and get the paint chip, and so that I can see if it's all going to be cohesive or not before I purchase anything, you know, and I'll decide on the flooring, and even if we can't do the flooring for another year or two, you know, I'll go ahead and decide what I'm going to do, so then I know what kind of rug I'm looking for, because I know what's going to look good with that flooring, and that just keeps you really focused, and it keeps you from having to getting a confused design in the end.
No, I think that makes a ton of sense, because I think it's so easy to impulse buy, to like something, and it can be really pretty, but not have it fit with what you're already going for.
Yeah.
And then you get, again, that weird mishmash, but you don't feel like you should get rid of it.
Yeah. And it's easy to buy things just because they're trendy too. Yeah. And just to think, oh, this is what I've seen. And I've seen this rug in a lot of magazines or on a lot of Instagram accounts. And so I'll buy this rug. But then when you get it into your home, maybe it doesn't quite fit your vision. And then it's not a beautiful rug, you know? So keeping your vision in mind and what you want for your home, I think is a really big deal.
Where do you typically buy your rugs?
Oh, I've found them so many places. It depends on my budget. A lot of times I've gone more expensive, like 100% wool Company C rugs, which are just really good quality, and I love them. And those rugs lasted me the longest, obviously, because they're great quality. I've also bought rugs from IKEA. I've bought rugs from Target. I've bought rugs from rugsusa.com.
Yes,
I think
that one too.
Yep. Or there's also rugs.com, but I think rugsusa.com has better deals. And usually the type of rugs that are budget rugs, I just anticipate that they're not going to last more than 5 years, and I'll just have to replace it in 5 years, and that's fine. You know, if you have kids, you might have to replace your rug in 5 years anyway.
But or shorter.
You know, if there's like a marshmallow that gets, you know, stomped into the rug, you never know.
No, well, right after buying our light colored rug, somebody was on antibiotics, you know, the pink antibiotics, and Mike was shaking it, and of course it just... Yep. You got to break it in somehow.
Yep, exactly. That just happens. So, you know, knowing what stage of life you're into, I think is helpful. You know, purchasing for that kind of thing, there's a limit as to how much I will spend on a kid's room just because they're growing up and they're changing and they're going to want something different in 4 years. And they're just destructive on things. And so IKEA is a great place to shop for kids' stuff.
And knowing and understanding that when you're going into it. But that brings back to your grandma's house. So what do you think about the rooms, though, that are perfectly set, but then never used?
Well, she used them for adults.
Oh, she used them for grown-ups. Okay.
I was a child, so I wasn't allowed in there. But her style was very formal. You know, she was from the South, a wealthier family from the South. And so that was her style, and it worked really well for their lifestyle. My grandfather was a head surgeon at the hospital there in Atlanta. And so they would have a lot of those people into their homes. So having something really formal worked really well for them. They also had, I think it was like a 2,000 square foot area of the house that was just for kids. And it was full of toys, tons of couches that were like blue plaid, you know, so they hid everything, you know, and it was really
comfortable,
cool to have blue plaid couches back then. So so they had areas that were very kid friendly.
Oh, that's really fun.
And we were always loud in the kitchen, you know, to get our snacks and stuff. And so there were areas that were for different things. I don't have anywhere in my house that my kids are not allowed.
Yeah.
Part of that maybe just because we've always had smaller homes, and so I never felt like I needed to.
You kind of have to use all the space.
Yeah, you do, and I never felt like I had enough space to have areas that were shut off. But I do think it's totally fine to try to achieve. Maybe not perfection, but to try to achieve something really beautiful and to teach your kids that, just be careful. You can't throw a ball in this room.
Right.
There's glass lamps, and it's totally fine for them to learn not to touch a plant, not to throw a ball around a glass lamp. Obviously, providing them with places to do those things is really important. Right. But I think it's good for kids to learn. This is in this room, I can do these things, but I can't do these things. But I also don't want my home to be so formal that people don't feel comfortable in it.
Right.
I want
the balance of.
Yeah, and I also want to always have an attitude. If my glass lamp breaks, it's totally fine. It's and I have that attitude about everything in my home. It's all replaceable.
Yeah.
The people are way more important than the stuff.
The people aren't replaceable.
The people are not replaceable. And I love having other people's kids into my home, and I love having a home full of people. And so having a very open attitude about what I have in my home and never getting too attached to the breakable things. It's just a good idea. And we've had lots of things break over the years and get stained. And
the stains.
It's just totally fine. Yeah, it's totally fine. But I don't think that should stop me from creating a look that I want. And I will go ahead and get the white couch because I love a white couch. And I know it's going to get a stain on it eventually, and it's going to be fine. And I do have a slip cover that can come off and I can wash it. But things like that. I think it's okay to try to achieve what you want, the beauty that you want to achieve, but hold it really loosely if you have a lot of people in your home, which you should have a lot of people in your home. That's what homes are for.
Absolutely. I love it. The equal balancing effect. Well, and I love that your grandma's home had both of those too. Because I do think being in the Northwest, it's just, we don't have lots of formal homes.
No, we don't need them really.
No, it's just, it's a very different cultural aspect on that. But it's so fun to imagine that, because I can so picture what that is like.
Oh, it was just beautiful. Her home still is beautiful. She just has a smaller home now.
Yeah, where she's behold it all.
Yeah.
So what about the exterior? Do you guys paint the exterior too, or is that something that you hold off on? And any tips on the outside of the house?
Yeah, we've actually, let's see, in the homes that we've owned, we haven't done a whole lot of exterior work. Other than just, yard maintenance and stuff like that. I'm trying to remember. I think every home we've bought has been a fairly decent color.
So you haven't had to deal with
Yeah, we haven't had to deal with a really weird, crazy color. We have done repairs. We've repaired a roof and we've repaired siding here and there. I painted shutters that just where it needs touch-ups and things. But so far, we've had homes that have been fairly decent looking on the outside. The house we just bought, the farmhouse, is shingled siding, and it has some areas that are really worn and some that are brand new, and so they are a totally different color.
Right.
Because they're brand new. So we need to age those. And then half the house, the trim is painted, half of it's not painted. So we have a lot of little things
Smaller
to do.
Things, but it's not a total re-siding project.
No, and the shingles are really fun. I mean, they're just really unique to this area. And if you have a really clean, pretty trim with it, then it really dresses them up and it makes them look beautiful. So, so we are definitely planning to keep them and then just fix up the rest of what needs to be fixed up. And the nice thing about shingles is you can patch them.
Yeah.
The areas that are really old, we can just pull those off and put new shingles up and then age them. Yeah. So I need to learn how to age shingles.
I don't know how to age shingles either.
I don't either. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
It's a lot of this house is figuring things out. Yes.
On all the things.
Yeah. I've been doing a lot of that lately.
A lot of the YouTube stuff.
Yeah.
Have you done any tiling work yourself?
We have. We tiled an entire room at our first house, and I loved it. It took a long time, and it's a lot of measuring and making sure you get things perfectly. But it was like a 400 square foot room. It was quite large, and it turned out beautiful. And I would totally do it again. I loved tiling. It's not actually that expensive when you do it yourself. Right, a lot of tiling is
the labor.
Yeah,
and the
labor
grout
is the cost. We bought. I wish I could remember the name of it. That would be helpful. But we bought a type of grout that you didn't have to seal it. So it saved us so much time when we were tiling. So we just, obviously you put it around on your first layer and then you can just scrape it off, and it washed right off of the tile and it sealed beautifully. And we had our dining table on top of it, and water spilled on it all the time, and milk, and it was totally fine.
Oh, that's really
cool. So you definitely, if you have tile under a table, you definitely want to make sure it's a sealing kind of grout, because milk can, or any liquid that is not water, can seep into the grout and
all the buddies.
Yeah.
Well, same buddy. There you go.
Can seep into the grout, and it can actually create mold under your tile.
Oh,
so you
really?
have, so you have to make sure that you talk to the guy at the tile store. Make sure you get a grout that seals well.
Wow, that's really good to know. Because I didn't realize it grew the mold right underneath it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
So
it can
okay.
start smelling really bad.
Oh, that'd be
A lot of
you
old
can't think
bathrooms will have that. They'll have a funny smell, and it's just because the tile didn't have the proper kind of grout, and so you just get all sorts of old bathroom water seeping under your tile.
And then you're stuck.
It's gross. Yeah.
Okay, so with your current style farmhouse, what have you been doing to achieve the farmhouse look?
Yeah, well, first off, we just sold a house that was built in the 40s, and one thing that I always like to do is kind of let the house speak to me, if that makes sense. But I like to learn the age of the house and work with that, not necessarily buying things from that era, but work with things that would look good or are inspired by that era. So in a 40s home, I could get away with things that were a little more antique looking, and looked like that were a little more inspired by that era. And then I moved them into my 1890s home, and they looked ridiculous. Because everything in this home is very, it's more rustic.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely embracing that a little more. So I took my coffee table yesterday and I stripped off all the finish on it and stripped it down to the raw wood, which I didn't know how to do until yesterday. So
now you do.
It was fun. Yeah. So now I have this big, giant raw wood coffee table, and it looks gorgeous. I don't think it would have looked beautiful in any other house that I've had. And I learned so I also had an antique dresser that looked really beautiful in my 1940s home, and it looked ridiculous in this house. So I watched YouTube videos and learned how to whitewash stain, which is like a really light white stain and you rub a lot of it off. So it looks almost like it's weathered, almost like a driftwood effect. And it looks beautiful, next to the shiplap and next to the old wood walls. So just learning new things. I also sold some like wingback chairs that I had that looked really pretty in a vintage home, but did not look pretty in this home. And I got some different furniture for it, for the living room that was a little more, it's hard to find farmhouse
the farmhouse furniture is. Yeah.
So I just went with something really simple that has linen colored cover on it, so that it's it has that same texture that you might find in a farmhouse,
Oh, that's really fun.
Yeah.
Well,
but got rid of I had these beautiful gray high back chairs that had all these buttons on them that were brass, and they were really pretty, but just didn't work. So we moved on. We moved on with those. And I think that's a big tip too, is just being willing to move things along, even if you like them. If they're not working, just move them along.
Yeah.
It's okay.
No, I think that's a huge tip. And I think that's a hard one to embrace.
I think that's what I see the mistake most people making is just holding on to things for too long. You know, things that don't work with that house or don't work with the rest of what's going on in the room, and just thinking, well, because I spent money on it, I have to keep it.
Yes.
But a lot of things, I'm telling you, you can make all your money back selling stuff. I do this all the time. You can make it back, sell it, and then buy something of a comparable price, and or be willing to change things, strip off a finish if you need to, or paint something just to fit with your current house and your current design that you want to do.
Is there anything that you haven't changed? So some heirloom, though, that has come on down.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So my same grandmother, who had a beautiful house. She was also an artist, and she painted this gorgeous painting for my husband and I. We used to live, I grew up out of town in Moscow, and she took a photograph of the landscape around the house, and then she painted it for us and gave it to us as a wedding present. Oh. And she put this huge gold frame around it, and it's really pretty. And it hasn't really gone with any of the houses that I've ever bought, but it's always been a central piece in my home because it's just part of my story, and I love it. Yeah. And so I just keep it, and it's always above the piano, and it's always just central to the living room. Right now it's actually in the dining room. And it doesn't bother me at all that it's not perfect with the rest of the house, because I think you also need to bring in parts of your story, and you have to have a home that doesn't, well, you don't have to. I prefer a home that doesn't look just like a magazine shoot. You know, I want it to have personal elements to it. So something like that, I haven't changed at all. There's another picture that my husband gave me right when we were first married, it's in a big giant frame, and I've just always worked around that. I've always just taken the colors out of that picture because I love it so much, and worked with those colors because I want to keep it. You know, I don't want to get rid of it. So as I'm creating a vision for my home, and even if the style has to change a little bit depending on the era of the house, I still work around those pieces that I don't want to get rid of and make them work in my design.
Oh, I love it. Well, I think we should wrap it up.
Yeah.
But if you have any other last thoughts or last tips that sparked in your brain.
I don't know if I have any additional tips, but I do want to stress it does not cost a lot of money to make a home beautiful. And I think just putting in a little effort and wanting it to be beautiful, creating a vision, and then just chipping away at it little bits at a time. When we first got married, I think I had like $20 a month. We didn't have very much money to put towards decorating, and I just stretched it as far as I could, you know, and I would buy fabric and recover whatever I could with it and make curtains or whatever, you know, just creating something beautiful with just a little bit
of extra help.
Yeah.
I've got an extra helper here. All right. Well, Lindsey, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And hopefully we can share some of her pictures of her current.
I'll dig some up.
Okay, good. All right, thanks for being on here. I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Kathryn.
Thanks for joining us. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next week.